Zero-emission cities. Current advances in materials technology, renewable energy systems and building design offers the promise of zero-emission cities in the future. By using new high-tech materials and a little town planning, it is hoped that we can build these cities to be clean and green, as well as self-sufficient for food and water. We asked people, what excites you? What frightens you? And how will it change the way you live? These were some of their responses.
How much work is being done to look at the unintended consequences of building zero-emission cities?
The innovation required to implement such change would be enormous to say the least, and changing our thinking on cities would have enormous technological, social, economic and political implications. It sometimes seems that those promoting new technologies have deeper pockets and greater motivations than those making the critical assessments. For instance, the high-tech materials that would be used for the construction of the new buildings, air and water filtration systems, as well as energy capture, would likely be composed of nanomaterials. But who can we trust to make sure as a society we will not experience a health or environmental risk to the exposure of these nanomaterials? Governments, NGOs and researchers are now coming together to look beyond the minimum protections that current regulations require and ensure that we map as many of the potential consequences as possible. For example, there is currently a lot of work being done into mapping the life cycle of a nanoparticle to investigate the potential health and environmental risks. Corporations too must engage with these organisations meaningfully to determine the level of risk that their products represent, or they may be liable for damages in the future.
Does creating these cities remove us further from our connection with the natural environment?
Self-sufficient cities will represent a major shift in the way we produce food for urban systems and would likely rely on genetically modified rooftop gardens as the source of supply. Does this represent the removal of a link to traditional agriculture? And does it really make sense to move from these natural systems to a high-tech urban one? In answering these questions, we might consider that our current systems are capable of producing over 2 kilograms of food a day for every person on the planet, but over 40% of this goes to waste. Perhaps we need to look beyond the technology of the zero-emission city and ask the people living in it for the answers. What do you think?
cloth napkins and guest towels may seem like the right environmental choice, when you factor in the energy, soap, and water used to wash them, Simulant's biodegradable, disposable napkins are an earth-friendly alternative.
I'm Oki Sato of Nendo from Tokyo. I'm here in Milan to present my SU stool from Emiko. SU means simple or basic or 0.0 basically. Emiko is about providing tools for architects and interior designers, and I think SU is really in line with that. The idea was about making a stool that goes in line with the typical Navy chair, the icon of the Emiko brand. What we wanted to use from the Navy chair was basically the contour of the seat, which is what creates the comfort even though it's a metal seat. And also the profile of the legs, which has very flat surfaces but it has curves as well, which creates the visual softness of the chair. Working with Emiko was almost like working with an Italian company. There's Greg, who is in charge of everything, he decides everything, and then there's Magnus, who is in charge of product development. And so we just discuss everything together, and it's also simple. Greg showed me a list of materials, eco-friendly materials that we could use, and we were supposed to choose maybe one or two out of these materials. And we said, why don't we do all of them? And Greg got a little bit scared because he didn't want a warehouse filled with stools. So we had to come up with another idea, which was taking off the seat from the legs, but not in a really technical way, but using a single coin. It's a single screw that connects the seat and the legs together. And I think the coin is the thing that creates the friendliness in the piece. So in that sense, I think it is a very Nendo piece as well. So the customer can decide the finish or the materials of the seat and the legs. The legs, we have 3 different finishes and 3 different heights. And by taking off the seat, we can stack up the legs as well. We are presenting the plastic, the reclaimed oak from Barnes in Pennsylvania. We have the concrete, we have the aluminium in the matte and the mirror finish, and the cork as well. And in the future we're thinking about leathers or upholstery, things like that as well. So I think this is not about just designing a single piece of furniture, but it's more like a system that we can develop in the future as well.